the Jenni Carlson Show, everyone. I am so happy to be joined today by Chad Weiberg, Oklahoma State's athletic director. And Chad, this is awesome. Thanks so much for taking time to chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we thought this might be a good week to do this because obviously your football team's getting ready to head to Arizona State, and a non-conference game this year becomes a conference game next year. So, obviously a lot of talk with conference realignment, and I feel like that's probably the best place to start our discussion. You and I have talked, and you've talked about this as well. You take the job July 1st, 2021, and then the world gets turned upside down with conference realignment. OU Texas, the news breaks that they're planning to head to the SEC. You've actually told me you remember the actual day. You're not forgetting that day.
No, yeah, I think it was. I think it was 21 days into it exactly, and yeah, it definitely sort of well, obviously changed things right then. But what we didn't know at the time was sort of the whole domino effect that it was going to continue into the next summer and the summer after that, and continues to go still today. So.
Did you have any sense of just the sea change that would cause in college athletics at the time back in July of 21?
No, I didn't, and maybe part of that was because at the time I wasn't trying to look at the overall landscape. I was busy just trying to focus on what we needed to do here at Oklahoma State. I don't think anybody saw the UCLA USC move to the Big Ten the next year, and that one was a little bit different. If you recall, OU and Texas, didn't announce that they were making the move. It kind of leaked out there. But the UCLA USC, they announced it. I mean, it was a done deal. And when it was announced, and so I don't think anybody saw that coming. Certainly we did not. So.
Yeah. So back in 21, when things start to move and shake, what was your suspicion about how the world might change for OSU? I mean, there's obviously maybe not these bigger ramifications that people could have seen, but you had to be thinking about what was going to be good for the Cowboys and Cowgirls. So how did you think all this was going to change things for OSU?
Well, I just remember being obviously concerned about the move and what that could, what that could mean to us overall. But at the same time, I just had this feeling of confidence that we were in a good position. I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like or where that was going to lead, but I just felt really, really good about where we were. And I can remember talking about, answering a lot of questions about what is it that we need to do. And of course, we were doing everything that we could do at that moment in time. But the reality was the important work, the real heavy lifting, there was nothing that we could do in that moment in time. It really was all of the work that we'd put into it over the last 15 plus years. And but because that work had been done, I felt really, really good about where we were positioned. And so I felt like, although I couldn't predict exactly what that was going to look like, I felt like we were going to be a factor in it and be in a position to be in it long term, whatever that is. But I think what this has all done, Jenni, for all of us, and I can remember talking about this at the time, and then the UCLA, USC, and how everything has transpired since then. The word conference realignment has been used a lot, but really what seems to be happening is some movement towards consolidation, whether that's conference consolidation or divisional consolidation or whatever you want to call it. And I think we're certainly seeing that. The way I was describing it is I feel like there's this sort of cut line, if you will, and the cut line is going to continue to move north. And so it's a matter of who stays above that cut line. And so for us, the focus has always been, what do we have to do to continue to position ourselves to be on the right side of that cut line as that cut line continues to move, if it continues to move. And it certainly appears that it is going to continue to move for the foreseeable future.
What are some things, can you give us a little insight on what are some things you feel like you guys have done since in the last 2 years to continue to try to make sure you are above that cut line? I mean, I think about the facilities announcement, but what are some things in your mind that have elevated you guys to continue to be above that?
So, I think what is being measured, what as far as, we can tell, and we've certainly learned a lot over the last couple of years about what is being measured, right? And I think there's two primary things. These are big buckets, but I think the best way I know how to describe it is sort of market is one bucket and brand is another. And the market is something that we don't have a lot of control over. Oklahoma is not a big market. We don't live in a big market. It's not a big state. So in and of itself, we don't, reside in a big market area. There's a lot of other schools that have that as an advantage. That's not an advantage that we have. The other thing is brand. And we do have control, a lot of control over our brand. And I think that is the strength. That's what's positioned Oklahoma State really well to be in the position that we're in. And a lot of that starts with winning. You have to be competitive on the field, on the court, all of those things. And again, over the last 15 plus years, we have been. And that's what's, I think, put us in a really, really good position. Because it matters that your fans want to watch your teams. It matters that who you're playing, those fans want to watch watch your game. And then it matters that sort of the unattached fans feel like it's important to watch your game. And I think one of the things that drives that is if they feel like that your brand is going to factor into the season down the stretch. And again, we have had a history of being in that. And so that is important. So everything that we do has to continue to position our teams to be competitive and to continue to win. So facilities, all of those, how we recruit, all of those things factor into that. But then there's other things that factor into that. I think it matters the perception that people have about your school, about your brand, about your team. And I think that is driven largely by your following. So when the lights come on, the cameras come on at Boone Pickens Stadium, I think it matters that the place is full. I think that is a message that gets sent across the country. We all, unfortunately, sometimes tune into games and the stadium is half full, right? Well, that sends a very different message instantly about the importance of that game. But if you tune into a game where the stadium's full, it's sending that message. And so we've tried to get that out to our fan base. I think our fan base has responded very, very well. We had a sellout last week. Our next home game is a sellout. Our season tickets are sold out for the season. Our student tickets are sold out. Our club seats, our suite tickets, everything is sold out. So I think we're tracking to potentially have a completely sold out season. I think that's part of the brand, right? I think that is an important message that we send. Our interactions, what we do on social media, all of those things I think are being watched, being measured. And so we're talking about and working continuously on all of those things.
I think most people would say that if you look around the Big 12, if you're measuring brands, you guys are up towards the top. Obviously, the Big 12 adding 4 teams this year, adding 4 more teams next year. It seems like it's also in a good spot brand-wise at this point. What do you feel like, I ask you what you all have done at Oklahoma State to position yourself. What do you feel like the Big 12 has done, the important steps that it has made to now be in this position to be one of those big brands moving forward in college athletics?
Yeah, it's remarkable, I think, Jenni, going back to the earlier part of the conversation, how far the Big 12 has come since that time in July of 2021. And I think that, there's a lot of people that deserve a lot of credit for how we've gotten to where we are. But really, it boils down to a lot of really, really good decisions, some small, some big, but just continuing to stack good decisions on top of each other. So that, and that's leadership. And I do think that Commissioner Bowlesby, I know that he gets, a lot of hits over being the commissioner when OU and Texas decided to leave, but he also should get a lot of the credit for moving quickly to add the 4 new schools. And I think that was important to just get some stabilization. And the timing of it worked out good to where we were in a position to go get the 4 best sort of available schools, if you will. And we looked at all the data, and I think the data told us the same thing, that those were the best brands available. So we were able to get those into the conference. And then hiring Commissioner Yormark, I think, was a great decision. I think he was exactly what the conference needed for this time. His skill set, the experiences that he brings to the job, I think were perfect for what we needed. And he's just, I can't say enough about, I think, the job that he has done. He's done a terrific job positioning us from a timing standpoint with our contract. I mean, being able to kind of have a sense of what was going on in the market to get us there, I think was a huge strategic move, obviously, for the conference. And then really, I think it was just positioning the conference the best we could to be opportunistic. It wasn't that we were going to cause any other movement, but if there was movement to be had, we were going to be well positioned. And I think that's exactly what you saw with Colorado first making the decision to join the Big 12, even before they officially got presented, I think, any of their numbers. I think that was a really, really good message that they were sending about wanting to be part of the Big 12 and what we had going on. And then obviously with Arizona State, and Utah coming in later, those are great brands, I think, to add to the Big 12. Puts us at 16 teams. So I think all of that is good for the future of the conference.
You obviously haven't even tiptoed into the expanded Big 12. You haven't played a game yet in a Big 12 with 4 new schools, much less 8 new schools. So this may be a tougher question to ask, but what do you feel like the biggest impacts of a bigger Big 12 is going to have on Oklahoma State specifically?
Well, that's a good question. We're excited. We get to play all 4 of the new members this year, so I think that's a great opportunity. We have 2 on the road, 2 at home, so we'll get to go to a couple places and see what's happening at those places, and then have 2 of them coming here. I think it puts us in different markets, I think, is a big part of it, a big part of the advantage of what we're doing. So now we have a footprint in the state of Florida, for example, in the state of Ohio. We've got now a footprint out, towards the west part of the country in an additional time zone that we haven't had before. So it just continues to move us into different markets, which I think has the ability to not only grow the Big 12 brand, but grow each of the schools' brand individually. And what that does for us from an athletic department standpoint and recruiting, being able to maybe recruit in different areas and broader places. But I think also institutionally, I think it'll then increase the institution's ability to recruit more in some of those different areas as well. Obviously, we've had a presence in Houston, I think, before, but this just increases the institution's presence in Houston. We've got a good alumni base there in Houston, and now we just have the opportunity to be there a lot more than we have been in the past. So I think there's a lot of really good things that come from it.
Obviously, at some point, next year with the 4 new schools, you may play the 4 new schools next year as well, but I assume next football season we'll see something that looks closer to how scheduling will be moving forward for the Big 12. What have you heard at this point about how that might look? Divisions were the old way in the Big 12. We've seen the sort of pod systems or, 3 set opponents and then a moving around of opponents. What's your sense of where the Big 12 might be headed in that regard?
Yeah, we haven't gotten too deep into it yet. We're modeling that out a little bit. And so I think we'll be having those more in-depth conversations about that here very, very soon. I think the main thing that we're going to be focused on is how do we best position our teams, to get as many teams in the playoff as we can, to get the right teams into the conference championship. So I don't believe, at least I'm not a proponent of, and I don't believe I've heard a lot of traction for divisions, for example, because I think divisions create an opportunity to where you are leaving, maybe 1 or 2 better teams at home and not even playing in your conference championship game. And I think that can create problems with trying to get more teams into the expanded playoff. So I think that whatever it looks like, we're going to be structuring the schedule with the the new 12 team expanded playoff in mind. So how do we make sure that we are positioning our best teams to be able to get access to the playoff?
There's also an interesting side note to Big 12 scheduling now. Big 12 after dark, Chad, with this new with these new teams out west. I know you guys are playing this Arizona State
Yes.
game, kicks off at 9:30 Oklahoma time.
Yep.
This could be something we see somewhat regularly moving
Yep.
forward.
Yeah, we'll get to experience that a little bit this weekend for sure. And so, yeah, there'll be some opportunities for some later kick times, at least local time here in Oklahoma, and I guess potentially even later for the schools in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah.
But I think there's some good with that. I mean, I think that if you look at some of the Pac-12 ratings, they've had some success with some of those games kicking at that time, because it is, by then a lot of the other games are finishing up. So it's a pretty unique window there that a lot of people will tune into. So especially if we get some really good games. Now, I don't think that all of them will be late games. Obviously, I think a big part of Arizona State, particularly, I assume Arizona is the same way as the September games with the heat. They are always scheduled for night games, but they do play some day games as well. And so I don't think that it's not like they'll all be after dark.
Not like we need to take naps before every football game from here on
Right.
out. I get
Yeah,
it. I
right.
get it. Since we're talking about scheduling, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a little bit about Bedlam. I think everybody on both sides has made it pretty clear, football wise, Bedlam is probably on a hiatus of some kind. We don't know how long. But what about other sports at this point, Chad, as far as could basketball, men's and women's continue, softball, baseball? What's your sense of Bedlam in maybe some of those other sports?
Yeah, my sense is that those Bedlam will continue. I think in most of the other sports, I think it'll just look different than it has in the past. So take basketball for example. I don't know, but I doubt that we would play a home and home, for example. So it may be, one year it's in Norman, one year it's in Stillwater, that kind of thing. Baseball, softball, is it going to be weekend series? Maybe not. It may be more of a midweek type arrangement. So I think that there'll be the opportunity to continue to play Bedlam. We're still having those conversations. I've had conversations with Joe about it. I think our coaches are having conversations with their counterparts about what that looks like. So I think it will continue in most other sports, but my guess is it'll just look different than what we're used to seeing.
I wanted to ask you one last football question before we do a little lightning round, if that's all right. I hope you're okay with lightning rounds. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about Mike Gundy. He portrays the relationship that he has with you and with your president there at OSU, Casey Strum, as being extremely positive. I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about the relationship you have with Mike, and if it is positive, why has that collaboration been as good as Mike has portrayed it?
Well, I think it's been extremely positive, and I can't speak for him as to why he feels that way. I mean, I think from my perspective, I just have a tremendous amount of respect for him and the job he's done. It's he really has built this program into something that it's never been before, and that's not easy to do anywhere. And just the consistency that he's done it with, and some of the things that he's had to do to get it there over the years, I think is I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves for where he has placed this program. And so and I just have so much respect to Jenni for how he does it. I mean, how he handles the kids. He talks a lot about, obviously his boys, right? He's got 3 boys. And I think that is kind of the perspective that he takes with it, is just how would I want somebody to coach, my sons. And so I just have a lot of respect for that. And I think communication is always the key. So try to just stay in communication, explain to them where we are from an administrative standpoint or whatever, what's going on, how that could impact his program. I want to get his thoughts. He really he's been around a long time. He has a lot of knowledge, a lot of history. And so I want to hear, his thoughts on what he thinks about whether it's scheduling or realignment or anything that's going on. I do value his opinion and value his thoughts. And so I think all of that is what it needs to be. That's how it should be. And so I just have a lot of respect and appreciation for what he's done for not only the football program, but really for all of OSU athletics and for Oklahoma State University in general.
I know as somebody who's a little older myself, I appreciate when he uses 80s movies references like he did earlier this week with Animal House. I felt like he's speaking my language a little bit there too. So.
Well, I like to go to practice because the playlist at practice is a lot of really good music, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, I heard some Beastie Boys when I was there a few weeks ago. I was impressed by the music selection. I don't know if the guys on the field were as impressed, but
I think they love it. That's the thing. I think they even have an appreciation for, hey, this is good music. So.
All right, we got 3 quick questions for you, Chad, to wrap up. And I know this first one, it might change after this season or after the next 2 years, but currently, what's your favorite Big 12 road trip?
Currently, what's my favorite Big 12 road trip? That is a great question. And I'm probably going to...
You worked at K-State. You worked at Texas Tech. I was thinking those might be some favorites.
Well, and they would be. And so now you've got me in a position where if I've got to pick one over the other, there's going to be somebody mad at me. So, no, I would probably have to go with Manhattan just by a little bit. And I'm going to say it's because we still have a lot of, family members that are there, and in addition to good friends in both places. But so it's always good to reconnect and have that opportunity when we go to Manhattan.
Awesome. Well, orange, obviously a popular color in your neck of the woods. I know you wear it a lot. So I'm curious, do you have a most interesting piece of orange clothing in your repertoire?
No, I guess I would have to. I don't have any orange pants. I don't even have an orange blazer like Coach Boynton does. He looks great in that. I'm not sure I could pull that off quite as well, but I do have an orange belt that was a gift from BYU on coming into the conference, and so. Nice. I do appreciate that very much and enjoy that. So
I was gonna think maybe orange cowboy boots, although I don't see you wearing many cowboy boots. So I thought that might be a step too far.
Yeah. I do have them. I don't wear them often, and they're not orange.
Well, for anybody out there who wants to get Chad a birthday gift at some point, now you know what to get him. Okay, yeah. Last one. Your predecessor, Mike Holder, competitive guy, golfer, golf coach. We even heard his AD, he did the step challenge, steps during the day and that sort of stuff. So we know he's competitive. I assume you be in athletics. You've also got a competitive streak, but what's your competitive outlet?
Well, that's a good question. I don't do the step challenge. I would like to be a better golfer, but I golf for fun. Anybody that golfs with me, it better be for fun. It's not going to be competitive.
So Mike Holder's off your golfing. You cannot golf with Mike.
Well, yeah. See, I came here thinking that I would get to golf with Mike. And then I learned when I got here that he doesn't golf anymore. So, yeah. So it kind of blew that. No, I think I get a lot of competitiveness out just through being associated with OSU, but also with my kids. They're involved in sports, so get to enjoy that through them as well, and that's probably enough for me at that point. I probably want to not do anything competitive.
Yeah, your blood pressure gets tested enough with all the OSU events. I totally understand. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Chad, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today. We can't thank you enough. Have a safe trip to Arizona State. And For everybody who's joined us here on the Jenni Carlson Show, you can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, basically anywhere you find your favorite podcast, and of course, selloutcrowd.com. So we'll see you next week. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jenni.
Thanks, Chad.